Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name's Joey. We're only a few days away from UFC 264. The main event is Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 3. I am so excited for this fight, and this video is going to be my breakdown and prediction of that fight. Before I give you my prediction for the trilogy, I'll take you back to the rematch and give you what my prediction was back then, since I didn't have a YouTube channel then. I predicted Conor McGregor to win the fight in January. I thought that Dustin Poirier was going to go out there. I thought he wasn't going to mix in the clinch work. I thought he wasn't going to mix in the grappling. And I thought basically he was going to stand in front of Conor and try to bang, and that Conor McGregor was going to put him away early. And I thought that Dustin was being massively overlooked, but I just still picked Conor anyway. I thought that, I didn't think that Dustin would mix that grappling in, that clinch work in. I just thought he would go out there and stand in front of Conor. That's not what happened. Dustin Poirier went out there and, used all his tools in that fight and eventually finished Conor in the second round. I thought a lot of people, were picking Conor in that second fight. We're also referring back to the first fight. That was 7 long years ago. Both guys are completely different guys at this point in time. So I really didn't think, Conor KOing Dustin in the first round back in 2014, I think it was. I really didn't think that had much to do with 2021. Both guys are vastly different. Both guys have vastly improved. And I just thought that really had no bearing on the second fight. Now, as far as the third fight, I believe you can look back to that second fight and you can use that second fight to try to understand what may or may not happen in this third fight. I think that Dustin Poirier went out there with a very smart game plan in that second fight. And he mixed in the grappling, he mixed in the clinch work, he mixed up the leg kicks. He just did everything right in that fight. Now, did he get lit up with a couple shots? Yes, he did. But he was able to weather the early storm. Conor wasn't super versatile in his varied of attacks. I feel like he threw very little kicks in that second fight, and I feel like that was a massive problem for him. And I think in this third fight, my prediction is going to be Dustin Poirier by third round TKO. Now, I feel like every fight, when we're talking about Conor McGregor, most people say that Conor's got to get him out of there early. Conor's got to get him out of there early. Otherwise, he's going to lose. And I think that logic is still true in this third fight. Now, I do believe that the talk of Conor's gas tank is vastly over-exaggerated. I think he has a better gas tank than a lot of people give him credit for. But I do believe it is a weakness in his game. He's not, a Tony Ferguson. He's not a Dustin Poirier where he can go 5 really hard rounds without taking rounds off or being really, really exhausted. And I think Dustin Poirier has that advantage. So I think the longer the fight goes, I think the more in Dustin Poirier's favor that this fight will be. Now, again, I think Conor can win this fight. I think he's a very good striker. I think he can find Dustin's chin, but it has to be in that first or second round, and it has to be before Dustin Poirier gets his hands on Conor and really starts to wear on him and make him work. And in the second fight, we've seen this, and I believe we'll see this in the third fight. If Dustin mixes in the grappling, the clinch work, I believe he will be very successful in this fight. And he doesn't even have to be super dominant with the clinch work or super dominant with the grappling. He just has to make Conor work. Now, obviously Khabib was able to take Conor down and hold him down and eventually submit him. But Dustin doesn't have to do that. All he has to do is get Conor really thinking about that, as far as the realm of possibility of Dustin shooting in on a takedown or Dustin clinching up with him, just to freeze up that striking a little bit. We've seen it time and time again in fights where we know a guy is a superior striker, but because of another guy's wrestling ability, it kind of freezes the other guy's striking ability a little bit. We even seen it in the Conor versus Khabib fight. There's nobody out there that'll tell you that Khabib's a better MMA striker than Conor. But Khabib went in there, and because of the takedown threat, was able to drop Conor with the right hand. And I believe it's very similar in this fight, except Dustin is a very good striker as well. So I think, Conor's fear, fear is the wrong word for it, but you get the point. Conor, game planning for, looking for the sprawl, defending the takedowns, avoiding the clinch. I think that kind of holds him back a little bit in the striking department because he's going to be looking to defend that takedown. And then also, Conor's always held his hands a little bit low. But, in this fight, where he's worried about the takedown, I think that, he's more susceptible to getting caught on the chin, just like in the Khabib fight. I think there's so many parallels you can draw from that Khabib fight. But obviously, Dustin's by no means the same level of grappler as Khabib is. So it's not that extreme, but it's just enough where I think it will work for Dustin. Dustin showed in that second fight he's not going to be too prideful. He's not going to get lured into the games where Conor's saying, "Oh, first one that shoots a bitch" and stuff like that. Dustin's going to go out there. He's going to fight to his game plan. He's going to use all his tools, and he has more tools. He has more. I've talked about this on my channel multiple times before. When I look at a fight and in predicting a fight and analyzing a fight, a lot of the times I look at avenues to victory. And Dustin Poirier just has so many ways to win. I think if it goes to decision, I don't really see a possibility of Conor winning. If it goes to decision, I would be 99% sure that Dustin would win that fight. Now, if it's a submission, I'm pretty sure Dustin wins that fight too. So Dustin has so many avenues to victory against Conor, where Conor, I feel like he has to KO or TKO him in that first or second round. Now, I think after that second fight, there was a lot of focus on those calf kicks. And, Conor never heard of calf kicks before, even though Dustin used them in their first fight back in 2014. Um, and I don't think a lot of people realize that Dustin was landing that right hook constantly throughout that fight. In the first round, he landed one pointed at him. And it was around the same time he landed a calf kick, but the announcers, I don't think, picked up on it. Dustin landed a big right hand on Conor that started that flurry to the eventual KO of Conor in the second fight. And I think that, a lot of people think, oh, well, Conor's going to be ready for these calf kicks in this third fight. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, Conor's going to make adjustments and he's going to come back better. But Dustin has so many tools. He may push Conor up against the cage and, do a little bit, a little bit here, a little bit there, and just wear on Conor's arms just to survive those early rounds because Conor is so accurate and so powerful. He's going to land a couple shots on Dustin. He landed quite a few shots on Dustin in that first fight. It's all about minimizing the amount of shots that Conor lands on Dustin. The further the fight goes, the less power that Conor's going to have in his hands. It's just shown time and time again. And also, I think a lot of people, they talk about the Conor McGregor touch of death. He doesn't have the same power at 155 that he had at 145. It's just not there. Conor McGregor was cutting a massive amount of weight to go to 145. He was fighting guys that were naturally smaller than him, and he was putting their lights out cold. And I'm not going to take anything away from him. He did a great job. But when you move up to 155, it's different. And you've seen he has not really knocked a guy dead at 155, at least in the UFC. He was able to finish Eddie Alvarez and stun him quite a few times. But you see it was more an accumulation of those power shots rather than just knocking a guy dead like he did to, Jose Aldo or, Marcus Brimage in his UFC debut. It's not the same at 155. And I know he knocked Dustin out at 145. But Dustin, again, was draining his body to get down to 145 as well. He couldn't take the amount of shots, that he can take at 155. And that's another reason also that I did pick Conor in that second fight. I looked at Dustin's career in his last few fights, and I said, he's been taking a lot of damage. Even in these fights he's winning, the Eddie Alvarez fights were crazy. The Justin Gaethje fight, he ate a lot of shots. The Dan Hooker fight was insane. So I thought that, Dustin's chin had maybe diminished. He had eaten all these shots. He had been in all these wars, and I thought maybe Conor was going to find his chin and put him out. But Dustin's shown he is so durable at 155. And one day all that damage is going to catch up to him, but I just don't believe it's going to be in this fight. I think he's going to come out against Conor McGregor. I think he's going to mix in the clinch. I think he's going to mix in the takedowns. He's not going to be super successful with it. I don't think he's going to take Conor down and be able to beat him up like Khabib did or even work a submission like he did. Maybe in the later rounds he might be able to do that, but I don't think he's going to be super successful. But Conor's going to eventually tire, and Dustin Poirier is going to eventually land, a nice shot. Maybe it's a right hook again. Maybe it's a jab that really stings him and snaps his head back. And then eventually Dustin Poirier is going to move in for the kill. We've seen him take on guys like Max Holloway, who has endless cardio, and he's able to just keep going for 5 hard rounds. Dustin Poirier is not going to get out of there early unless he's put unconscious. He said in the lead up to this fight, I have heart, and you can't buy that. And I really truly believe Dustin Poirier has some of the, best heart in the game. I mean, this guy, no matter what happens to him in a fight, he was hurt badly in that Justin Gaethje fight. His leg was getting chewed up in that Justin Gaethje fight. And this guy refuses to give up. And Conor, I feel like, and I know there's instances of him, taking damage and coming back to win. He did in the second Nate Diaz fight, which I thought he lost. He did a little bit in the Chad Mendes fight, but that's a different story. Chad Mendes was coming in on 1 week's notice. But I feel like Conor kind of goes more the route of like an Anthony Pettis. When things are going good, they're going good. But the second he starts to taste that adversity, it's like, oh shit, what do I do now? And maybe I'm wrong on that. You guys can let me know in the comments. But I just feel like Dustin just has the will. People underestimate that. When you're ready to die in there, when you're ready to go out and, unless this guy puts me unconscious, I'm not going to give up. People underestimate that. And also Conor now, since, being finished multiple times, he hasn't won a lightweight fight since 2016. That aura of invincibility is gone. I feel like a lot of people looked at Conor McGregor and was like, oh my God, I cannot stand with this guy. He's going to put me to sleep. I feel like Eddie Alvarez kind of acted like that in their fight, where he was just so terrified of being on the feet with Conor. He couldn't commit to anything. He wasn't throwing any big shots. The takedowns were coming half-heartedly. But I think that aura is gone. Khabib has dominated him. Dustin, destroyed him and finished him in that second round of their second fight. And I just think, you're looking back, his only win in the last 5 years was against Cowboy Cerrone. And look where Cowboy Cerrone's at. I think it told me a lot. When Conor was coming back for, after the Khabib fight, he had the choice between taking on Cowboy Cerrone or he had the choice of taking on Justin Gaethje. And he said, you know what? Give me Cowboy Cerrone. And that told me a lot where Conor's mindset was at. And I think in this fight, Dustin Poirier may very well retire Conor. I think if Conor gets stopped here, I think he may never fight again. A lot of people are going to say, okay, maybe he'll fight Nate Diaz in the trilogy. And maybe that's true. I think that's a possibility. But I think there's also a possibility. Nate Diaz is a weird dude. He might say, I'm not fighting you. You just got stopped twice. I'm not fighting this guy, You got stopped and you got knocked out twice in a row. If that does happen, I'm not fighting you. Now, if Conor wins, it's almost a for sure thing. They're going to give him a title shot against Charles Oliveira next. Charles Oliveira is going to want it. The UFC is going to want it. Conor's going to want it. Even if somehow Conor squeaks out a decision, he is going to get a title shot next, unless some other fight comes to fruition. And I just think, Dustin Poirier is going to come out there. He has a very high fight IQ. He's shown me in the last fight he's not going to get lured into any games where he's going to try to stand and bang right in front of Conor because it's the prideful thing to do. He's going to mix in everything. He's going to be a true mixed martial artist. And Conor's out there talking about, first one to shoot is a bitch and this and that. This is mixed martial arts. It's the mix of everything. That's what makes these fights so fun. You have a guy who's so good on the feet like Conor, and then you have a guy like Dustin who has a little bit different skill set, and he can mix that in there, and it's to see who's the best, We can see, is Conor able to shut down the takedowns and the wrestling offense of Dustin Poirier and able to land his strikes and eventually put Dustin away? And I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think he's going to catch Dustin a few times, in any fight. Conor is super dangerous early, super accurate. But I think as the time wears on and Dustin knows if I can just, minimize the amount of shots that I eat from him in the first 2 rounds, I can win this fight. And I think Conor's going to come in more prepared. I think he thought that he was going to steamroll Dustin in that second fight, and I think maybe he didn't take him as seriously. And we seen Conor when he came back against Nate Diaz the second time. And he was more prepared. He had a better game plan. He took him more seriously. And regardless whether I agree with the decision or not, he put on a vastly better performance in that second fight. And I think he will put on a better performance in this third fight. I think you'll see a very measured Conor. I think Conor will not, explode as much early. I think he will be lighter on his feet. You look at Conor in that second fight, and a lot of people made a big deal about it, Conor's movement. He fought a lot like a boxer in that fight. He's not the Conor that was typically super light on his feet. He wasn't throwing a lot of kicks, which I think was a massive part of Conor's success. He has great body kicks, great T kicks to the body, great spinning kicks. And he didn't really use many of those in that second fight. He even has great leg kicks too that he could come out. I would not doubt if Conor McGregor, he's a very, stubborn guy. He might come out and say, you know what, I'm going to calf kick Dustin Poirier in this fight. I would not be surprised on that. He came out in that Nate Diaz fight. He was chopping Nate Diaz's legs. And Conor has great kicks. And I was sad, even though I'm a little bit of a Conor non-believer, I want to see Conor at his best, fighting Dustin. And I want to see him mixing up his attacks. And I really believe that's a key to victory for Conor in this fight. I think he has to mix up his attacks. I think he has to conserve his energy. And I think he has to, really put Dustin Poirier on his back foot. And he just didn't do that in the first fight. I just don't believe he'll be able to do it in the second fight. But I believe he will put on a much better performance in this third fight. And I think eventually he will wear down a little bit. I think he'll have his moments in those first and second rounds. I think he may even win the first round. But I think come the third round, he's going to start to wear down a little bit. His arms are going to get a little bit heavy. And I think Dustin Poirier is going to find a way to finish him. I think it's going to be very similar to that second fight where, he starts to wear on Conor. He eventually catches Conor with a big shot. And Dustin, once he knows you're hurt, he just comes in for the finish. And he just swarmed Conor in that second fight. And I think it'll be a similar, third round. I think it'll be a similar stoppage in the third round of this fight. I just really believe that Dustin is so prepared. I think he has a very high fight IQ. I think, he's training the hardest possibly he can because he knows how important this fight is. If he wins this fight, first off, the payday's huge. Second off, it's only bigger things in the future. We've seen it time and time again. When you beat a guy who's like a superstar like Conor McGregor, you elevate yourself. Dustin's been elevated by that second fight with Conor, and now if he beats him for a second time in an impressive fashion, he will elevate himself again. Nate Diaz has always been a popular guy, but after that fight with Conor McGregor finishing Conor, his star elevated significantly just because he beat a guy with the notoriety of Conor McGregor. So Dustin is taking this fight very seriously. He's going to win at all costs. He's not going to go out there and look for a way out if he gets caught with a big punch. You've seen Donald Cerrone, and I know a lot of people made a lot of this, but Donald Cerrone ate some shots early in that fight and he quit. He was not unconscious. He did not want to fight back. He was hurt badly, and I get it. It's an MMA fight, but he went out there, did not perform, just covered up against the cage and just let himself be TKO'd. There's no way Dustin Poirier will let that happen to himself. He has to be put out cold. The referee is going to have to jump in because Dustin will keep swinging till the end. And I just think there's no way when you have a guy who will not wilt no matter how bad it gets in that fight. I mean, he was hurt badly in the Justin Gaethje fight. He was hurt badly in the Eddie Alvarez fight. There's no way Dustin is going to give in unless he's unconscious. And Conor, I think there's something to be said when Conor's pressing the guy and moving forward, Conor's constant forward pressure, and he's landing shots on the guy, and he just keeps, absorbing them and swinging back. I mean, I think Conor's will starts to fade a little bit. When things aren't going his way, it's almost like an old shit moment, and he just starts to really, start to contemplate, okay, how am I going to win this fight? Because regardless if he wants to say it or not, I think Conor knows, in a lot of these fights, it's not always the case, especially against Dustin Poirier, he needs to get the early finish because Dustin Poirier, he can beat the shit out of Dustin Poirier for the first and second round, but if he doesn't finish him, you best believe Dustin Poirier is going to come on strong in those later rounds and potentially even win a decision if he needs to. It's just fact. It's just fact. Conor's gas tank is not what Dustin Poirier's is. And I think, again, that Conor's gas tank is a little bit underrated. I think it's not as bad as people make it out to be, but it is an existing issue for him, and I think Dustin will be able to exploit it. Just as long as Dustin doesn't get too crazy, I don't think he will, but I hope he doesn't come into this fight too overconfident based on the outcome of the second fight. I hope he just keeps it simple. He mixes up the takedowns. Even if he doesn't get them, he pushes Conor against the cage, makes him work his arms a little bit, tires him out a little bit, and then he starts to kind of let his hands go in that second, third round and eventually gets that third round TKO. I'm so excited for this fight. I can't wait. And the other thing I wanted to say is a lot of people after that second fight, they made nothing but excuses for Conor. I get there's a lot of Conor fans out there. I get it, whether it be the MMA media or just Conor fans in general. Uh, it was nothing but excuses. Oh, this wasn't motivated Conor. Before every fight, it's, oh, this is the most motivated I've ever seen Conor. This is the best shape Conor's ever been in his life. You stop it with that. It's almost becoming the motivated BJ Penn joke. It's just outlandish. They talk about, oh, he has all this money. He has all this, he has family now. There's plenty of guys in MMA with plenty of money, and they also have families as well. And they're able to go out there and they're able to win fights. I don't want to hear that excuse. I don't care to hear that excuse. What more motivation do you need than you're in a cage while millions are watching and another guy is trying to knock you unconscious? And especially for Conor, that family of his, he's bringing to the events to watch the fight. You don't think he's motivated to go out there and finish Dustin Poirier? He is, without a doubt. So stop laying out those excuses for him. It just doesn't exist. He is there to fight and he is there to win. If he loses, he's just not the better guy that night. It just is what it is. Stop making those excuses for him. In the second fight, I feel like a lot of people did that. And then also, the other thing I didn't like is Conor always takes his losses on fight night like a good sport. He always credits the other guy, this and that. And then slowly after the fight, it's like nothing but excuses. And after that second Dustin fight, he made a lot of excuses. And I don't know if he's just saying that for his fans or he really believes that. But if he really believes that, that's a massive issue. Because how can you correct the issues that you had in that fight if you don't really believe, they were issues? I don't think, this is going to be a heavy calf kick fight for Dustin. I think he will throw a few. It's very, very hard to check that calf kick. Conor actually did. People don't give him credit. He did try to check some of those where he turned the shin bone into the kick. And that's supposedly the best way to counter those. The other best way to counter those is to get in and out. If Conor sees it coming, he can jump back and let Dustin completely miss. But I don't really believe. I think Dustin's going to try it, but I think he knows that Conor McGregor is going to be expecting some of those. I think Conor's going to throw some of them back, to be honest. I think he's going to come into this fight looking for some retribution and looking to chop Dustin's legs. Like I said in that second fight, Conor did not throw a lot of kicks. So I think in this fight, he will come out throwing a lot of kicks. I think it's super important to his game plan. The body kicks, mixing things up. It's not just the hands and the boxing ability of Conor. It has to be the kicks. But also, the other thing I wanted to say is if Conor McGregor wins this fight and does not fight in MMA, like he goes off to boxing, there was talk of Manny Pacquiao, I am going to be sickened. Because even though I'm not the biggest Conor McGregor lover, I like to see the guy active in the sport. And if he wins this fight, that'll be a massive win for him. Maybe he'll go on to fight Charles Oliveira. I don't think he would necessarily deserve that with a win over Dustin. But it is what it is. At least he got a quality win over Dustin. Wouldn't be too happy. But if he wins this fight, and he's, I'm going to box now, I just want the guy to stay out of the sport. I'm just tired of him jumping in, jumping out. Again, he's only won one fight in the last 5 years. It's hard to believe that against Cowboy Cerrone. But my prediction for this fight is Dustin Poirier by third round TKO. Let me know what your guys' prediction is in the comments. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please do me a favor, like the video. Also, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and thank you so much for watching.